Okay, thank you. What a warm welcome. You're all here to see me, I'm sure. My name is Matt Weiss. I'm a director of marketing here at Brooks. And on behalf of our entire team, we want to welcome you to the Hyperion House. And thank you for joining us for this wonderful afternoon. My mom is not in the audience, so I know that no one is here to see me. So we're going to keep the introductions brief. Between the three of us, we've made 4 Olympic teams, medaled at the World Championships, and won the 2018 Boston Marathon. Okay, I'm going to stop having fun. We are thrilled to be able to do this today. These two do not need an introduction, so my job today is very easy. Des Linden, Kara Goucher, yours.
Okay, full disclosure, this is awkward for us because we're normally like in our pajamas with our dogs recording on crappy video cameras.
Yeah, we don't spend a lot of time together, so this is sort of like this is like the third date.
It's actually kind of awkward to be around you.
They did ask. They were like, "Do you want to do it on a couch?" And you could. I was like, "No,
no, yeah." I think that this is a different situation than what we're used to, and like Des just said, we're like not normally together. So this is weird for us. But welcome to the first ever live taping of Nobody Asked Us with Des and Kara. We're super excited to see, I don't know, what you guys think. And we have some exciting news today.
We do have exciting news. We're just in the back doing some recording, getting some pieces together because we have a new... What episode is this, Chris? This is our 9th episode, and we just partnered up with TCS. So we're super thrilled. And we have... Haley here today from TCS, Team TCS, is going to join us for just a quick conversation about the new partnership. Welcome, Haley.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
So excited to be here.
We want you to tell everyone a little bit about TCS. So when we think of it, or when I think of it, I think of the New York City Marathon. But what else does TCS do?
Yeah, so Tata Consultancy Services, or otherwise known as TCS, we're a global IT services and technology consulting company. So we really help Fortune 500 companies with digital transformation. But in the sports world, we're best known for sponsoring the world's largest marathons, including, as you mentioned, the TCS New York City Marathon, this weekend's Boston Marathon, the Chicago Marathon, and next weekend's TCS London Marathon.
And how do you see TCS technology impacting the running world? Like, what are you guys doing? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to innovate? Just give us a little insight.
Yeah, well, I have a question actually for the audience and for you both. Have you downloaded the Boston Marathon app? Who has downloaded it?
Yes.
Okay. If you haven't, some homework for all of you. Go back to your hotel rooms or home, download the Boston Marathon app. We created it. TCS is the creator of the official marathon app, and we do it for almost all of our races. And it's a great way to have your event guide for the weekend and track your favorite runner right here on stage. So that's a great example of how we're putting technology directly into the hands of runners and fans. But we don't like to do technology just for technology's sake. We really want to drive positive change. So an example, as you mentioned, like how is this making a difference in sport? We debuted a new feature last fall at the TCS New York City Marathon where we had a second screen feature directly in the app where fans from around the world could watch their favorite runners every step of the way, uninterrupted, end-to-end for all 4 pro races. So men's, women's, open division, and then the wheelchair races as well. And I don't need to tell you why that's important. You both have been in the broadcast booth, right? When you're creating access to all those fans around the world, you're really creating equity as well. And there was really demand for that. The numbers were super high, and what was even more incredible, it wasn't just demand for all the races. The women's race actually had 52% more viewers than the men's race globally. And when you look at the U.S. stats, that number jumped up to 64%.
Okay, well, the big question is, why do you want to sponsor Nobody Asked Us with Des and Kara?
Well, we are so excited to partner with you because we believe that running really has the power to change lives. We see it all the time with our Team TCS runners, many of whom are running the Boston Marathon this weekend alongside, well, not quite alongside you, but but we also believe that this show has power, right? It has the power to lift up voices, tell stories of change. I've been listening to the last, I guess this is the 9th episode, right? So last 8 episodes, and your voices are really powerful. So at TCS, we want to partner with athletes like you and races who are really making a difference in their communities and making it a more equitable, accessible sport for all. So thank you. Thank you for choosing us to partner.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. And we'll now be known as Nobody Asked Us with Des and Kara, powered by TCS.
And I don't know how many of you have listened to every episode, but Des always nails the title. So I think she should be the official intro person every time we do the podcast.
We'll have to re-record and re-record. We should do an outtake show.
We definitely should do an outtake show.
String together some really bad takes.
All right. See,
What do you
this is
wanna
so
talk-
funny because we're not used to people watching us.
What do you want to talk about today?
I know what I want to start with.
Okay, go for
Let's
it.
talk a little bit about number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list out this week.
Well, you know what the list is like, and you know what it's like to be waiting. number 7, she's on it. The string of successful books coming out and being on the list is really cool. But you also know it's kind of stressful, and you're like, this is the goal, this is what I want, but I know it's not in my hands, and it's kind of subjective. Like you don't really know how they're going to pick it. And I said yesterday when it kind of first talking about it, I was like, oh, I missed the podium, but. So here's the thing, you guys, and I promised, I talked to a friend about this, she was like, just be happy that you're number 4. But I was like, I really think I should have been 2nd. So then today, the hard data came out, and on a sales ranking level, we were the second high. We should have been number 2.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, but thus the list is the list. And then there's also, they're categorized into different things like how-to books and this and that. So there was other really high-performing books. But from a sales perspective, we did have the second best-selling book on that top 10 list. So
that's amazing.
So I'm not telling you to connect the dots and say it's silly, but just saying.
Yeah.
We like data.
I didn't even know there was a list that actually had the hard numbers.
Oh, I can give you numbers.
Okay. I'm going to make you go back and research the week that I was on it then and let me know.
I can tell you.
Okay, good. All right. Well, you've been all over the place promoting your book. It's been interesting watching because my book was actually embargoed from the media, so no one could see it ahead of time, where I feel like I read a review of your book. I've been hyped about it since maybe February or January even, where I read the first review I read of your book. So now that it's actually out, people are reading it, you're meeting people, you're filling up churches. What has the past week been like?
It's been great. I mean, I think you put so much into it and you work so hard on it, and then you go I hope people are interested, particularly because the win was 5 years ago, and do people still care? Is it interesting? Do they want to read about it? Will they connect to the rest of the story? And the response has been yes. It's been fantastic, and so that's been really cool. It's as far as tapering for a marathon, going on book tour 2 weeks prior, it's not the best thing for high performance, but I will say that my coach and I have been on the phone every day, and it's do you need to do this? What's the best thing you can do for your running? What's the best thing you can skip? How can we shuffle things? So it's been, if you could nail a book tour before a marathon as part of a taper, we did it, but it's not ideal. So I thought that was interesting that you said the thing about the embargo, because it's a totally different setup, and you've been doing the media requests and fielding interviews and all of that stuff afternoon when it was released. It was probably go. What's the last couple of weeks been like for you?
I have a few days off from interviews being here. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. It's 2 to 3 interviews a day since the book came out, which is good. It shows that there's interest, and the more hands it gets into, the more interest there is. And so it's been exciting. It's been really exhausting. As you know, I'm an introvert and I want to sleep for 10 years. But it's also great because I think the thing that I'm so proud of is that, like you said, my win was 5 years ago. My book was originally going to come out earlier, kept getting pushed back due to COVID. And I remember saying to my publisher, I don't even know if I'll be relevant anymore. I don't even know if people will think of me when they think of runners anymore. And so it's been rewarding to see no, our stories matter, and that female athlete stories matter. I mean, there's been 3 New York Times bestsellers in the last 2.5 months, written memoirs by female runners. And that's been really cool. For me, I feel really proud to be a part of that.
100%. It's been really interesting and neat to see. And I think I think that's kind of the theme of this whole thing is like, how can we as former competitors like lift each other up? How can we share a space and not worry about like, am I getting enough of the pie, or is my brand getting enough exposure, or is Wazelle going to be upset because this is in a Brooks space, or is Brooks
They're not.
like, and that's, I think that's what's cool about this podcast is that we're finding out like actually we can elevate all of the brands and all of the stories, and it's not like competition of like I want to keep most of the pie to myself. It's like, hey, let's make some more pie. We can make more pie.
I'm going off script here. Yeah. This is not on
So
our
am I.
script. Okay, good. Because I love what you just said, and I think this is something that I always really respected about you, is that when I was competing, people are not that friendly to me. And you were always friendly to me. And you know, you're not like super outgoing, but you're always
To your
kind
face.
to me. Well, crap.
I kid.
I know. But that's what I always appreciated about you. And like, I felt like we had this connection, even though we had never even hung out or anything. And why do you think you were able to be a respectful competitor and not feel threatened by someone else's success? Because I don't think that that's how it always is. And I feel like it's getting more that way. But like, I really always respected you because you treated me with respect on my good days and my bad days.
Thank you. I'm glad you noticed that. I don't know. To me, I feel like I'm accidentally a pro. Like, I don't think I was ever supposed to be a pro runner. I don't think, like the offers weren't great. And, it was like, maybe she's talented. We're not really sure. So it was always like, let's just try this for a little bit longer and see. But I was never married to the idea of like, oh, this is the thing I have to be doing with my life, or this is how I make my living. I've slowly rolled into that, but then I've been able to keep that other side where it's like, it's just running. Like, we're putting one foot in front of the other and going straight forward. This is not really that big of a deal. So I think I try to approach competition and training and all of it like it could stop tomorrow. And, how do you feel about what you've accomplished in the space? And if you're just, if you haven't really been the top person, it's like it's about having a good time and meeting people and relationships and all of those things. And so those have always been the most important thing to me. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers
You kind
your
of like
question.
me, just admit it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we have. I think it's so funny because just the way we never really cross paths in like that often racing. But I do have a story of like the first time I knew you're from Colorado. Like, you were on the cover of the books when they sent them out to recruits, right? Like NCAA champion, like, oh, it's Carrie Goucher. Like, everyone wants to go to Colorado. And then I remember after NCAA cross country my freshman year, we ran terribly. We had a delay in the airport. Maybe it was a different, I think I'm mixing two stories, but we're in the airport. Doesn't matter. We're in the airport. And everyone on the ASU team was like, the Gouchers are in the airport. The Gouchers are in the airport. And like Colorado's team was in there, and this was Sarah Slattery, it was the Torres brothers, I think Ritzenheim was there, and they were just like, oh, the Gouchers are going to come over and talk to us. And everyone was nerding out, and I was like, what the fuck are these people? Like, And it was just crazy because that was like my introduction. Is like, oh yeah, she was on the book, and like, when you guys were like totally normal, I'm like, I don't get it. And then I saw like what you did in the sport, and I was like, oh, she's amazing, but she's also like just the person who was like, hey, like I'm passing through the airport, I'm normal, and that was like my first introduction to you, and it was a very normal experience.
That's hilarious. I don't remember that.
No, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, no, you went on a sidetrack there, but I've always wanted to tell that story because I think it's funny, and like all the Foot Locker kids were like, oh, let's all hang out together and talk about Foot Locker. Remember that time, blah 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 blah. And I was like, I so don't fit in. I never got to Foot Locker, so I don't know.
Yeah, but none of them are Boston Marathon champions, so
yeah.
you're doing all right.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Okay, you
What
have
else?
half notes.
All right, what else? Do you want to talk about any themes in the book? Any specific things? I think we kind of talked about lifting each other up.
Yeah.
Female athletes in general. I
Mhm.
know we have a great American squad out here. Do you want to talk about some Boston stuff and the Americans?
Sure. And you asked me like think about who you would be studying if you were going to call the race, but I'm not calling the race, so I didn't study.
You didn't study.
But I think the American female contingent is really exciting. I feel like obviously you know the course better than anyone else, but I feel like Emma Bates has had an incredible lead up. Sarah Hall seems to be running really well. I'm forgetting like so many amazing people, but it's just such, oh my God, yes. Aliphine has a chance to, I don't know, win that title, right? Get that laurel wreath. And I think too, just from a fan standpoint and someone that I competed against a lot who is still competing, you know, Edna Kimball got her first yesterday from 2021. I feel like if there's any justice in the world, if you don't win, she should be winning. So she can have that moment again. That would be pretty cool. So I'm excited about the women's race and I'm excited about the men's race too.
What on the men's side?
Well, obviously, I'm excited to see what Kipchoge can do on a course that's completely tactical and that isn't about checking your watch every mile and getting that feedback. It's really on feel. And you know this better than anyone. This course is so different. And so seeing him in a hilly tactical course, I'm excited.
It's going to be really fun. I mean, he's done the Olympics, obviously, and that's like decision making, but those have been predominantly flat. I don't think there's been too many challenges on those courses. I have a friend who says the Boston Marathon course is going to chew you up. That's the guarantee. Boston Marathon course chews everyone up. It's whether or not it spits you out over the last 6 miles. And I think that does that sum up the course? Is that your experience here?
Yeah.
Like, did you get through without being spit out, or has it been like 50-50? What was
Yeah, I would say I got through it without being spit out, but I was like, oh, that's hard.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued to see if Kipchoge is like chewed up and spit out or just manages it well, because he makes it look so easy, right?
Do you want to know what I want to happen so bad?
Absolutely. That's what we're here for.
I so bad want CJ Albertson to take it out blazing. Okay. And then Kipchoge to like go with him, and then CJ to like find this gear he's never found before, and then yeah. I just think that'd be really fun.
That would be fun. I think Brooks would appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Little shout out.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Nice. All right. Who else do we have on the men's side? Anyone else on the American side that you're interested in? Connor Mance, Scott Fauble, Ben True.
Yeah, Ben
37.
True. Amazing. And he, we know more from the track. Right? Mm-hmm. He was 4th, I think, at the Olympic trials multiple times on the track, which is horrible, but also amazing because he just kept coming back. I think he's like kind of an everyday hero. People really like him. I'm very interested to see what Connor Mance can do. He had an incredible debut in Chicago. So, you know, do the hills help him? I mean, he's a great cross-country runner.
He's such a toe runner. And I think about, when I watch him run, I think about Molly Huddle. I'm like, that guy's heel has never hit the ground.
Right.
So that makes me nervous for him. But he's like very light and like nimble. So.
And every race I've ever watched him run, he is hammering as soon as the gun goes off.
Right.
And I'm always like, oh, that's going to hurt. But then he just keeps going.
There's like a grit factor.
Yeah,
there.
He has like major grit. So I'm excited to see what he does too. Because I kind of feel like he could be the next American marathon star. And Scott Fauble seems to be feeling himself. He feels like good, right? Yeah. Like I just feel like he's kind of in like in a different place mentally than he was the last couple of years.
But okay, here's a question for you. I mean, this is like from the press conference, right?
Okay, I really don't want to insult anyone. I'm getting nervous.
No. I'm just saying, like, this is from the press conference. How many times did you go in the press conference and you're like, I'm going to talk myself up and I'm going to pretend like everything was here, but you're like, always. I'm here. So you hear these stories and you're like, what percentage of them are full of shit? And then who's like really like, they're for real?
So the last 2 years I called this marathon for NBC. And the best part about that job is that we would get to have you guys individually. You came in, we just like laughed the whole time and you told us books we should read. But that also gives you a feel, right? Because it's different than when you're sitting in front of all this media and you don't want to let any chink in your armor show. You're meeting with people and you're kind of laughing and you get a much better vibe of like if someone's like kind of faking it or if like they're really nervous and bound and trying to fake it, or if they come in and they like really let loose and are like, oh my gosh, whatever. Like Nell Rojas a couple years ago was so laughing, funny. And I'm like, that girl is going to have an amazing race, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not privy to those conversations this year.
I'm sorry.
You know,
sorry you didn't get to work this weekend.
Yeah, it's all right.
Next time maybe. I think that, I do think the TCS thing is super cool, and we've talked about this with the broadcast because we're really angling to one day share one of those. So perhaps the 4 screen, we can just do a podcast while it's going simultaneously.
Hey, did you watch the March Madness women's tournament? Did anybody watch it? Yeah, okay.
I watched some of it.
Did anyone watch the final and they had Sue Bird and...
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And they were just like talking while the game was going on. And I was like, Des and I would kill that.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
We'd kill that.
We could do that. So just saying, putting that idea out in the universe. So, hound your TCS accounts on Twitter and Instagram and just put the pressure on them.
Do it.
All right. What else do we got going on here? We talked about the competition.
This is so funny because normally we go down a tangent and really go there, but I feel like we're trying to be more professional because people are watching us.
Not really. I feel like I'm just completely unprepared and I didn't share the questions here. Do you want to give some tips for racing here?
Not when you're here. That feels awkward. Yeah, let me tell you how to get third, or you could hear from the person who won.
Oh my God. No, the first time I really came to watch Boston was when you were running it. And I was like, Brian and I were sitting at home and we knew Brian Sell was running and we knew Ryan Hall was running and you were running. And I was like, an American's going to win. Like, they're too good. They're going to win. So we packed up stuff and drove out and we watched that race and you raced fantastically. This is a big part of your book. And if you want the blow by blow details, get the book if you don't already have it. But what's it like that home stretch? I mean, coming right in Hereford, how would you describe Hereford?
Mount. It is a mountain. You just aren't expecting it. You know, you come up under the highway and you think like, oh, I did my work. And then you turn, you're like, oh no, I didn't do my work. And then Boylston is longer than you think. Am I right? Yeah.
You make it all the way to the left on Boylston and then it's like, now it's time to race.
Right. But you're like, really, I have to sprint right now?
Right.
Yeah. I think what's interesting is that you had this deep love for Boston, and so did I. I think, like, what is it about the tradition that roped you in? You know, you're talking about coming to watch us run. I wanted an American to win so bad that year. I mean, I really wanted it to be me. But I just wanted to be a part of the history, part of the legacy, to be able to conquer a course so difficult. And I feel like there's just, obviously we're not hungry anymore. We'll keep taking it because you and Meb got it done. But what was it that we all wanted? I mean, I came here in 2013 with Shalane for her first Boston. And she beat me. I think she was 4th and I was 6th. And when I got across the finish line, she hugged me and she started crying. And I was like, I get it. It's like this feeling. Right. She ran amazing, but it's this feeling of like, you just want it so bad. It's like, it's hard to even describe. It's so much more than you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you feel the energy on the street. Like you land here and it's different. Like New York's very spread out and it's great, but the energy is sort of like dispersed across the city. It's very centralized here, and you know that this is like the spotlight of the running universe is on Boston today and through Monday, and so that's exciting that you're the centerpiece, the focus for the entire running world. And then you take that and you like roll back for 127 years and you're like, these are epic races. There's crazy battles. There's just incredible history. And like to have one day where you're a part of it and in a big way would be, it's just, I think it makes you appreciate the sport. And then you realize that the city appreciates the sport. And then you realize that is going to be, it can be a legacy. And that's just different than anywhere else, I think.
Totally. When did you first hear of the Boston Marathon?
This is kind of embarrassing, but I feel like I knew about it kind of as a kid. I didn't want a marathon.
I know you thought that was dumb.
And
look what it's done for your life. So.
Yeah, I was like, no. And then it was probably, I'm sure I heard about it, watched pieces of it in college. But honestly, when I joined the Hansons team, I was like, oh, marathoning, that's interesting. And then I started the World Marathon Majors. There's this series. Oh, those are kind of cool. And I don't think it was even an official series yet.
Yeah, I don't think
dating
it was.
myself.
Yeah.
But yeah, you knew I started to learn which ones were a big deal, and then seeing Brian run. I think it was Brian Culpepper and Meb, Ryan Hall ran one year. Might have been before Hall, but they had a really great showing where someone finished fourth. And then you start to go backwards, and it's like this story always cracks me up. But the training groups, like the Oregon Project and then the Hansons, kind of have the same story, where they're like, we watched an American finish ninth, and then we're celebrating it. I'm like, well, who told the story first? Because it's like literally the exact same.
It is the exact same story.
Right? Like somebody is lying here. And then we celebrated it, and we thought, why aren't we celebrating podiums? And then, so yeah, you start to dig into that, and you're like, oh yeah, that like we do need someone to kind of make a mark here, and like, why can't that be me? So
yeah,
right.
I remember I grew up in Minnesota, so Dick Beardsley finished second to Alberto, although I didn't know who Alberto was, but I knew that Dick Beardsley was a really big deal. And then I remember following Uta Pipeg when she won. But I didn't get it until I decided to run it and read the book about the Boston Marathon and like
which book?
Does anyone who it's written by Tom Derderian? Thank you. And it's
trivia, he's winning trivia for sure.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I can't think of anything. Thank you. In chapter after chapter, the breakdown, and I just was like, oh my God, I want to be in this book, right? Like there's a revision every year, a chapter added every year. And I was so like, I guess I hadn't really dove into the history of the marathon in the United States until that point. I had already run New York, which was an awesome experience, but this just felt different. And I was just like, I'm going to be the one, and I wanted to just to be a part of that legacy. Like it really mattered to me.
It matters to them too. It's different, right? Like you come here and you're invited and they like treat you like a star and they treat you like you can win and you feel like the sense of obligation. Like, oh, like they're teeing this all up for me to have a really great experience and be the one. I remember you did that 20-mile training run and it was like, I think Flow Track or someone filmed the entire thing.
It was so boring.
It was like, this is the only place where they would be like, we're going to need 20 miles of footage and like, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And, but it was cool. Like, it was like, oh, you get a good course preview and like the banter. And, but if it was like in Chicago, no, we're turning that off.
Totally. And just what you said, like the community gets it so much. I remember in 2011, I had to, I think, get a crib or something for my son. And the guy that brought it up, I'm going to swear, he goes, this is your fucking race, Goucher.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But like they're in it, right? Like everybody around is going to be watching it, they take in the history as well. And so it just makes it even more special in a sport where we don't always get to, like you said earlier, we don't always get to be rock stars. You were saying in an interview earlier, and this is like a weekend where you get to be. And I flew in today and all of the Boston Marathon jackets on my plane, it was like amazing. Like you couldn't not be in a good mood. You could just hear everybody talking about where they qualified, how many years they've done it. It's just awesome.
The energy feels different this year. It reminds me a lot of 2011 when we had just like that flyer of a race and it was so exciting. I'm gonna tell a story about myself.
Okay, do it.
Because I think it kind of shows how you can be a rock star in Boston. People are always like, when did you feel like the winner? When did you feel like the city really like, like you were theirs, like you were kind of this adopted person for Boston because you're their champion. And it was the following year, working super hard, doing all the stuff, promoting the race and the things, and did the race, and there was this after party. And I was like, I'm going to let off a lot of steam at this after party. So I had a lot of fun, and I had a lot of beverages, and I was like, it's a private party. And I was like, I'm going to dance on this table. Like, it was super late. I'm going to do it. I'm like, who cares? And the owners of the place were like, absolutely not. And then there was a security guard that is with the affiliation. And he was like, she can dance wherever she wants. And I was like, I'm the champion here. So like, that was the game-changing moment. I was like, I can
clear off the table. I'm getting up.
Yeah, and the party took a big pivot from that point forward. It got a lot more fun. Everyone was having way more fun. So
I love it.
Yeah. I always wanted to tell that one.
What do you think it would be like for you to come to Boston as a spectator?
It would be so hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it would be really fun, but I think if I were, I did watch in 14, the year after I watched the bombing year. Mm-hmm. And I did an interview at the finish line, and that was just like a crazy, that doesn't even count as being a spectator day because that was like such an off day. But yeah, I don't know. I think it would be really hard. I would have to give myself a job to do. Or like, I do want to come and run it as someone in the masses and be like, I'm going to stop and eat orange slices and have a beer and take a bunch of photos and like I'll do that probably before I spectate.
Yeah. No, it's hard.
Yeah, no, I
will admit,
believe
it is a tough transition. Yeah. Yeah, I think that the Olympic trials in 2000 was my first big race I went to as a spectator.
Okay.
And it was so awesome. It was like a thing of beauty watching all 500 of you start together. It was like this rolling wave of women. And it was amazing. I was with my friends from Oiselle, but then there was a point where I was like, I'm not in a good headspace. I want to be out there. And I like went in an alley and like cried so hard. And then my old agent called me and was like, is everything okay? Somebody was walking by an alley and saw you crying. I was like, no, I'm fine. But
it's so proud.
Yeah, it's tough, right? It's just like a different place. And then you get to a place where you're like, yeah, I can't run with them anymore anyway. That's how I feel now.
I'm kind of like in the middle of that.
Not yet.
Sort
Not
of like
yet.
in between packs.
Yeah.
So, but okay, where will you watch it? Are you staying in Boston or are you heading home?
I'm heading home.
Yeah.
I like to watch it on TV.
That's
Is that
fair.
the weirdest thing ever?
No, I think you see more of it, right?
Yeah.
Like
I mean, like when you won, I watched it on TV and it was so freaking awesome. Like you were kind of like moving up. All of a sudden you took the lead and I'm like, she's taking the lead too early. Don't take the lead yet, you know? And then when you turned on Boylston, like I was just like screaming and crying. I mean, it was like so epic. And I mean, of course, if you're out on the streets, it's awesome. But I don't think I would have been able to see everything that you did.
Yeah.
I was so glad that I watched that on TV just because I got to see it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I was on Boylston when you had the sprint finish here, and that was like all the feels because you're like, like, and they have the video and like, I don't know, just being around everyone who's like experienced, like, so I don't think there's a bad way to watch it.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
No. I'm glad that you didn't just shame me for watching on TV.
No,
I really appreciate it, actually.
A really good way to do it is like get not the broadcast because then you have a very specific job that you're doing, but like get a media credential and then they have all the screens and then timing where like if you can get in the media room, gold.
Yeah.
Pro tip.
Someone needs to hook me up.
Yeah. Could probably get you a gig. So I don't know. Should we open it up for questions?
Yeah,
or
let's do it.
Do you think we've talked about ourselves enough?
I feel like we talked about ourselves a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boston questions, semi-personal questions, not too personal. Any questions? No quizzes, please.
This is for Des. You have the most unique pacing strategy of any elite marathoner I've ever seen. You don't seem to need to be in the lead pack, as opposed to most like Cara, Shalane. They always seem to want to be in the lead pack. How did you develop that, and where did it come from?
Yeah, I think it's a product of not being good enough to be in the lead pack. Like there was gradual progression, and you know, if I was at my peak and I was as good as Cara, who had the medal from the 10,000 meters and certainly belonged in those packs, I would have been up there knocking heads. But for like half of my career, it was like, how fast can you run today, and then let's see where that places you. And then each marathon it was a little bit quicker, and then suddenly it was like, well, now you have the choice to go with the leader or do your own thing. And then I could make those in the moment. So I was very comfortable following my own race plan and seeing where it placed me, or getting to that point where I could be with the group and then make decisions like this is too much, or maybe I need to lead the pack now. So that just kind of developed as I got better. So anyone else? Anybody other? That's the only question we got today? No?
Now, this question's for Cara. How do you feel about your Olympic ring tattoo now that you've gotten it?
Oh, I feel good about it. Yeah, Des and I covered this on our latest podcast, but I just never was happy with my Olympics, mostly because of the feedback I got from the people around me. I think it's been really interesting getting older and then seeing it through my son's eyes of like, that's a big deal. You should have it. And so, yeah, he had been talking about it for about a year. And then finally he just came home from practice and was like, Mom, and granted, I live in Boulder, so other people have Olympic ring tattoos. But he was like, it's a big deal. And it really helped me to look back and say, it was a big deal. And it is a big deal. And so I probably would never have done it without him. But now that I have it, I'm super glad I did it. And I feel like he helped me look back in a more I'm more positive and just kinder to myself. I did the best I could. And so now we just have to get Des to get hers.
I was going to suggest that I get a TCS tattoo. And then we would do it while during the show, and then it would just be the rings, like the pivot. They're like, she's the best ambassador ever. This podcast is, and then it would just be the rings.
I think that's a great idea, except you just spoiled it.
No, because I'm never going to do it.
So I read both of your books, but I actually listened to the audio version of both of them. How was that recording the audio version? Because I could tell, like, Des, you wanted to get like louder at one point, but you calmed yourself down, and and then Kara, of course, with some of your stories. How was that retelling it audio version?
Okay, it was hard, and you read the book so many times in the writing process. Like, there's constant revisions. You're always reading it, but then to actually like, blick, it started with scabs and a smile. You're like, what? Does this even sound good? And so it was hard, but I also wanted to do it. Like, the whole reason that I wrote that book is because I was tired of other people telling my story. So I was absolutely going to read it, but it was hard. There were times where I was really emotional, and maybe I haven't listened to it, but maybe you can hear it. I got choked up and had to take a break. It's kind of weird, right?
I hated it. I hate it.
But you wanted to do it, right? You didn't want someone else reading your story.
I didn't really want to do it. They're like, no, it's a memoir. Like, you should do it. And I'm like, I know I should do it, but I really don't want. There are people who are professionals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of exhausting, right? Like, you read as far as you can, then your voice starts to get scratchy. Right. You take a break, you try to come back, and sometimes you're just like, nope, I'm done today.
Yeah. I did, how many days? I had 3.
I think it was 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was 3 days, and like, my throat was so sore by the end, and I would come home and I'd call up Josh and be like, I hate this. Like, I'm not going to finish it. And I just didn't like it.
Okay. Well, I didn't hate it that much. But it was hard reliving some of those moments. It was hard enough to go through the process of writing it, and then like speaking them out loud made it. And it also made it really real of like, oh, I'm sharing everything. You guys know a lot about me if you've read the book. Yeah. All right. Well, we lost the last 5 minutes of our Q&A from this live recording, and hey, that's what happens sometimes when you go live. But we just want to say thank you to everyone who came out and supported us. Hope you guys like this one, and that's a wrap.